Hello, my name is Meshach and welcome back to my channel. Now, are you struggling with messy or badly structured data in Power BI? Then don't worry, because in today I'll be showing you two of the most powerful tools that can instantly clean and reshape your data. I'm talking the pivot and unpivot columns or features. Alright, these transformations help you convert wide tables into long tables and long tables into wide tables and get your data into the perfect shape for analysis. And in this particular video, this is the data set we'll be working with. So what is pivot and unpivot in Power BI? Alright, now the pivot simply transforms row values into columns. Okay, transform row values into columns. Alright, and this is useful when you want to summarize or recognize data so that each unique value becomes its own column. And so in this particular scenario, we can say that this entire data set is pivoted because each unique value has its own column. All right, and so this is pivoted. Whereas when we talk about the unpivot simply transforms columns into rows, and this is extremely helpful when your data comes in a wide format with many repeating columns. All right, and so the unpivot columns, what it's going to do is it's going to we are going to unpivot these three columns, and I'll be showing you how exactly to do that in this particular video. So let's do that. Okay, so in looking at pivot and unpivot in Power BI, this is going to be our data set. So this is a data set we'll be looking at. Now, if you look at this data set at first glance, we have the product ID, product name, you have the price, the total sales for Europe, total sales for Africa, and total sales for Asia. Now, this might be that in certain countries, there are certain items that are being sold there, whereas in certain countries, there are certain items that this company does not sell over there, or they do not sell some items over there. Likewise for Asia as well. And so if you look at this, what you are going to realize is that for the total sales Europe column, Techno Phones has a total sales. However, Blender does not have a total sales. So this can say, or this can refer to the fact that our manager or our company or business does not sell blenders in this particular region, which is Europe. However, Africa proves to be a region that buys a lot of our blenders, and so it's being sold in Africa. And then when you also come here, you can see that Asia does not really buy a lot of our blenders, and so we have only the total sales for Africa. So these columns might be in it. These particular three columns might be that some countries items being sold, the items that are being sold are sold in some of these regions, but other regions the items are not being sold there. And so the person that filled the data set made it simple. He or she took the data and they said, all right, so this is our product idea, product name, the price, and now he just added the total sales by region, Africa and then Asia. And he says, okay, so Technophone, this is the total amount, Blender, this is the total amount that was sold. And if you come down here, it says watches, this is the total amount that we sold. Okay, but if you look at this data set as an analyst, sometimes if you want to make your analysis based on this particular data set, it can be very cumbersome or very difficult to make your analysis based on this. All right, and so what you will want to do is that you want to unpivot it, and then if you unpivot it, what it's going to do is that it's going to bring all of this into one particular column. All right, the total sales into one particular column, and then these regions into another column. All right, so that when we look at C1 Technophone, we can just see the total, we can just see region and then the total for Techno, and then we can see the another region and then the total. Now I don't know if what I'm saying is understood, but let me show you what I mean. And so once we have this, we want to make this easy to understand, easy to read, and easy to analyze. Okay, so with on pivot, now these things are pivoted because they are all in their respective columns. All right, so if you remember the explanation I gave for pivot and unpivot, you will know that pivot simply means that they are all in their respective columns, whereas unpivot is going to group them and summarize them into ways that makes it a little simple to understand. All right, because of the now values and the fact that the now values, the results are in the different or other columns. Okay, and so this is fine, this is fine, this is fine. And so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to unpivot these three columns. And so I'm going to say this, this, and this, and we are going to see what will happen. So now once I select the three columns that I want to unpivot, what I can do is that I can just come to transform. Okay, you can just as well just right click, all right, and you have unpivot columns. Okay, you have the unpivot columns, unpivot columns, unpivot only selected columns. But you can also find them here, where you can also find them somewhere here. Yeah, you find them here. All right, so this is the same as when you right click. Okay, so don't get it twisted. So if you unpivot the columns, see what is going to happen. Voila, so you see what the unpivot is doing. So now it's doing what? It's summarizing everything under one column. And so you're saying that this is our total sales. Okay, this is now the total sales for all, and these are the regions. All right, these are the regions. Okay, so that when we take Techno, we know that Techno is sold in Europe, only Europe, based on what we had. Okay, based on this. All right, based on this, you know that Techno is sold only in Europe, not in any of these other countries. And then Blender is sold in Africa. And so once we unpivot, it's just summarizing everything as one. Okay, it's just summarizing everything as one into columns that makes it easy to understand. So you're saying that Techno, the region that sells Techno, all right, the region that sells Techno is actually Europe. All right, and the total amount that was sold, or the total sales, is actually 24,000. And now if you look at the region Africa, what we know Africa to be a good seller of, okay, is blenders. And this particular season, or at this particular time, the total sales for blenders in this particular region, excuse me, is 50,000. Okay, and so once we have it like this, now we can do our analysis. It's easier to perform our analysis based on this particular data set. Okay, because now we can just go in and say, all right, so total sales by region. Okay, and then maybe we can just add a little product name. We can just throw it into the visualization, and it's going to be easier to analyze and to understand. All right, the result is going to be easier to read and to understand, rather than having it in that pivoted style. Okay, and so this is how you can use the unpivot in Power BI. Now pivot is simply, just as we have this pivoting is simply we can say, all right, so now we have this and we have that. And so yes, this is simply what the pivot and the unpivot in Power BI is. All right, where you are able to summarize everything, to make it easier for you to perform your analysis. All right, if the data set is wide, okay, you unpivot it by narrowing it down, and if you want to expand, you can just pivot it. All right, and so that is what the pivot and unpivot simply is in Power BI, to make your work easier to analyze, and especially if it's in this form. If it's in this form, all right, and you can't really do analysis, rather than just filling the empties with zero and zero, or merging them, trying to merge them, because we could have easily also merged them. All right, there are so many things we could have done. All right, so we could have easily merged them. All right, and yeah, measure and see total sales. But the problem is that now we are not going to have our regions. All right, could have just said total sales. Okay, we can just see total sales, but now we don't have the region. All right, we don't have the region to depend on or to use. Okay, and so in order for you to be able to see which region contributed this, that is why the pivot and the unpivot, all right, so that you don't lose this particular information, all right, is very much important. Okay, so I hope this video was helpful. I don't know if it was. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below if it was. Okay, if you think there was something else I could have added, or you want to add, be sure to leave that in the comment section, and I'll be sure to look at. And if I need to make a video on, I'll really do it to make a video on. All right, and so yeah, like I always say, be sure to take care of yourself, and I really appreciate you for being here. I'll catch you in the next one, which is going to be parameters. Now that's an interesting topic, so be sure to subscribe, so when I release that video, you'll be the first to be notified. I'll see you.